the part of the brain God uses to communicate with us. Have you ever wondered if there's actually a specific part of your brain that God uses to speak to you? What if I told you that neuroscientists have discovered a region in your mind that activates during prayer, meditation, and spiritual experiences in ways that seem almost supernatural? Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating intersection of faith and neuroscience to explore whether there's truly a divine communication center in your brain. For thousands of years, humans have reported hearing from God, receiving divine inspiration, and experiencing spiritual revelations. But modern brain imaging technology is now showing us something incredible. When people pray, meditate, or have profound spiritual experiences, specific areas of their brains light up in patterns that scientists are still trying to fully understand. The primary region that researchers have identified is called the right temporal lobe, particularly an area known as the temporoparietal junction. This region sits right behind your right ear and is responsible for processing spatial awareness, self-perception, and what scientists call the sense of presence. When this area becomes highly active or is stimulated artificially, people often report feeling like they're in the presence of something greater than themselves. Dr. Michael Persinger, a renowned neuroscientist, conducted groundbreaking experiments using electromagnetic stimulation of the temporal lobes. Participants who had this region stimulated reported sensing presences, feeling spiritual connections, and even claiming they encountered divine beings. Some described it as the most profound spiritual experience of their lives, even though it was artificially induced in a laboratory setting. But here's where it gets really interesting. Brain scans of people during deep prayer show that this temporal lobe region doesn't just randomly activate. Instead, it shows organized, coherent patterns of activity that sync with other parts of the brain in ways that suggest genuine communication is taking place. The frontal cortex, which handles decision-making and conscious thought, appears to receive signals from the temporal region during these moments. Religious individuals who regularly pray or meditate show structural differences in their brains compared to non-religious people. The areas associated with attention, emotional regulation, and sensory processing are actually thicker and more developed. It's as if regular spiritual practice physically reshapes the brain to become more receptive to whatever signal might be coming through. Scientists have also discovered that during peak spiritual experiences, the default mode network in the brain behaves very differently. This network is normally active when we're thinking about ourselves, worrying about the future, or dwelling on the past. But during profound prayer or mystical experiences, this self-focused chatter quiets down dramatically. The ego essentially steps aside, creating space for something else to emerge. What's fascinating is that this isn't just happening in one religious tradition. Brain scans of Christian mystics, Buddhist monks, Islamic Sufis, and Jewish Kabbalists all show remarkably similar patterns during their deepest spiritual practices. There seems to be a universal neural pathway that humans across all cultures and faiths can access for divine communication. The neurotransmitters involved in these experiences are equally intriguing. During spiritual states, the brain releases increased levels of dopamine, which creates feelings of bliss and connection. Serotonin levels spike, producing profound peace and well-being. But most remarkably, the brain also produces naturally occurring DMT, often called the spirit molecule, during intense spiritual experiences. Some researchers propose that the pineal gland, a small structure deep in the brain that produces melatonin, might play a crucial role in spiritual communication. Ancient traditions called this the third eye, or the seat of the soul. Modern science shows that this gland contains the same light-sensitive cells found in our regular eyes and may serve as an internal spiritual sensor of sorts. But skeptics raise important questions. If God communicates through specific brain regions, why do people from different religions receive conflicting messages? Why do some people seem more naturally receptive than others? And how can we distinguish between genuine divine communication and our brain's own pattern-seeking tendencies? The answer might lie in understanding that our brains could be like spiritual radio receivers. Just as different radio stations broadcast on different frequencies, perhaps various forms of divine communication operate on distinct spiritual wavelengths. Our personal beliefs, cultural background, and spiritual practices might tune us into specific channels while filtering out others. Recent studies on neuroplasticity show that the brain's spiritual circuitry can be strengthened through practice. People who meditate regularly develop enhanced connectivity between the temporal regions and other brain areas involved in attention and awareness. Prayer appears to exercise these neural pathways like spiritual weight training, making them more efficient at receiving and processing divine signals. Interestingly, people who have had near-death experiences often report that their temporal lobe activity increases dramatically during these encounters. Many describe receiving downloads of information, having life reviews, or communicating with deceased loved ones. Brain monitoring during these events shows intense activity in the same regions associated with normal spiritual experiences, but amplified to extraordinary levels. The implications of this research are profound. If there truly is a biological basis for divine communication, it suggests that spiritual connection isn't just wishful thinking or psychological comfort. Instead, it might be a fundamental aspect of human consciousness, as natural and important as our ability to see, hear, or think. This doesn't diminish the mystery or sacredness of spiritual experience. Instead, it reveals that God may have designed our brains with built-in hardware for heavenly communication. The same way our eyes are perfectly designed to receive light waves, and our ears can capture sound vibrations, perhaps our temporal lobes are divinely crafted receivers for spiritual frequencies that science is only beginning to detect. Understanding the neuroscience of divine communication doesn't explain away God or reduce spiritual experience to mere brain chemistry. Rather, it shows us the incredible sophistication with which we've been created. Our brains aren't just thinking machines, they're sophisticated spiritual communication devices capable of connecting with realms beyond our physical senses. Whether you're religious or simply curious about consciousness, this research opens up incredible possibilities for understanding how humans might truly be wired for divine connection. The next time you pray, meditate, or feel that sense of presence during a spiritual moment, remember that your brain is engaging in one of the most sophisticated communication processes known to science.